Syrian rebels enter Damascus, ending Bashar al-Assad's 24-year rule. Bashar al-Assad said to have fled Syria. And in South Korea, the ruling party chief says President Yoon Suk-yeol will be excluded from duties before eventually resigning. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has fled the capital as 24 years of his rule and 5 decades of the Assad family in power in Syria appear to have ended. Rebels have swept through parts of the country over the last fortnight and say they are in control of Damascus and have ousted the regime. And Assad was reported to have left Syria. David Garrett reports.
Fighters stormed the Syrian presidential palace. Inside, there are few other people and no sign of the president, Bashar al-Assad. The fighters move on to an office which looks to have been abandoned in a hurry. After 14 years, the opposition of Assad are at the centre of power. The road to Damascus leading to celebrations for these warriors. Again, they appeared to face little resistance. Others appeared to come out on the streets to join their joy. As the Sunday sun came up, more people on the streets of Syria's capital. This Damascus resident was overwhelmed. A strange feeling of happiness, he says. A surprise, the dictator who was killed and oppressing people for 50 years, gone. The fighters swept south from their northern stronghold through Aleppo and Homs and appear in control of Damascus. They danced on tanks and smashed up a statue of former President Hafez al-Assad. State media released a statement late Saturday saying Bashar al-Assad was still in Damascus and still in control. That appears to have been a lie.
Where is Bashar al-Assad going to? I say, you know, when you really look at this is really, at the end of the day, a footnote in history. I'm, reminded a little bit by Kaiser Wilhelm II in 1918, who went to a long exile.
Flight tracking shows recent jet movement between Syria and the UAE. Other rumours placing Assad in countries which have supported his rule, Iran and Russia. The Iranian embassy in Damascus was ransacked by rebels. Windows were smashed and an office was torn apart. The opposition taking out their anger on the foreign governments that have helped keep him in power for 24 years. Russia's foreign minister spoke in Qatar, having met with the foreign ministers of Iran and Turkey, who backed the rebels. Sergei Lavrov tells the Doha Forum he feels sorry for Syrians who are part of an experiment. He described the group that led the armed rebellion Hayat Tahrir al-Sham as a terrorist group used to achieve geopolitical goals. Moscow advised all Russians to leave Syria earlier this week, but these people are returning. Queues of cars at the Lebanese border. Many displaced by the more than decade-long civil war heard the news about the fall of Bashar al-Assad and said they were heading back to Syria to celebrate. David Garrett, TVB News.
Bashar al-Assad's departure from Syria brings an end to 50 years of rule by a family from the Alawite minority in the country, which started with his father, Hafez al-Assad. Nasi Karim has more.
He was studying ophthalmology in London, with his older brother Basil being groomed to eventually take over from father Hafez al-Assad as the Syrian leader. But when Basil was killed in a car crash in 1994, Bashar was told to leave his postgraduate studies at the Western Eye Hospital and return home. In 2000, Hafez died and Bashar took over, continuing the Alawite dynasty in mostly Sunni Muslim Syria. His early years saw him mixing with other leaders, including Russian President and key ally Vladimir Putin and British monarch Queen Elizabeth II. The West was hoping he would bring a fresh and more liberal regime to a country previously ruled with an iron fist by his father. Then came the so-called Arab Spring of 2011. Backed by Iran and Russia, Assad conducted a brutal crackdown on the uprising, triggering a civil war now in its 14th year. The death toll is estimated to be at least 350,000, some saying as much as 600,000. In 2018, US President Donald Trump called him an animal, and the United Nations later described his siege warfare tactics in which towns are completely cut off as medieval. When once challenged in an interview, Assad likened himself to a doctor, saying, "Do we say to a doctor your hands are covered in blood, or do we thank him for saving the patient?" His support within Syria was restricted largely to Alawites, who make up around 12% of the country's population of 23 million, and some Shia factions. He was despised by much of the outside world, particularly for his alleged use of sarin gas that killed hundreds in 2013 and 2017. Nazri Karim, TVB News.
South Korean prosecutors have arrested the former defense minister over his alleged role in the short-lived imposition of martial law. And reports say prosecutors are also taking aim at President Yoon Suk-yeol. Yoon survived an impeachment vote in Parliament on Saturday, but his party suggests he will be forced to resign and excluded from his duties for now. The opposition leader has called for a second vote on December 14th. Nasvi Karim has more.
These protesters are anti-Yoon Suk-yeol and want him out as president. These are Yoon supporters coming out in their thousands saying he should stay. And this is a leader of Yoon's People Power Party, Han Dong-hoon, who appears inclined towards the anti-Yoon crowd. As South Korean prosecutors open a case on Yoon, Han said the damage caused by Tuesday's declaration of martial law is irreversible. The PPB humbly accepts the citizens' judgment, he said, adding that they hope for an orderly resignation of the president. Hours before Saturday's impeachment vote, which Yoon survived, the president apologized to the people of South Korea and said he would put his fate in the hands of his party. It may also be at the hands of the prosecutor, who has already opened a case with Yoon's former defense minister, Kim Yong-hyun, reportedly the man who pushed the president to declare martial law. The prosecution's special investigative team arrested Kim today after he voluntarily appeared at the office and had his mobile phone confiscated.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump says on social media there should be an immediate ceasefire and negotiations in Ukraine. It came hours after he met with Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky in an event hosted by French President Emmanuel Macron ahead of Notre Dame's reopening. Trump has written on social media platform Truth Social that this is the time for Russia's Putin to act and China can help. Zelensky earlier said his three-way conversation was constructive and crucial. Trump spent 90 minutes inside the Élysée Palace in total. The first hour with Macron, then they were joined by Zelensky for the last half an hour.
Thank you very much for being here.
And still ahead, the Housing Secretary elaborates on the government's basic housing unit proposal. 2 giant pandas gifted to Hong Kong by Beijing meet the public for the first time. And 20,000 runners take part in this year's Hong Kong Streetathon. Welcome back. The government is collecting public views on its proposal to require the city's subdivided units to meet a series of requirements. Secretary for Housing Winnie Ho told TVB News that around 30% of the units will be below standard and require rectification. While some people have urged the government to regulate the so-called basic housing units' rent levels, Ho said that's not feasible. Samantha Lee spoke with the housing chief.
The plight of tenants at subdivided units has been a long-standing problem in Hong Kong. The government plans to propose new laws next year and would only allow registered units that meet certain criteria to stay in the market. With substandard units being eliminated, some worried the average rent of these units will go up. Speaking with TVB News, Secretary for Housing Winnie Ho explained that setting an initial rent for registered units would worsen the situation.
That is adding extra pressure on the owners to, there is no reason for them to continue with this business of renting out as a basic housing unit. They would rather return it to the original state without any subdivision and rent the unit as a whole. And this will add pressure to the basic housing unit market with less supply. And this is exactly what the tenants don't want to see.
Talking about the minimum standards proposed by the government, Ho said she knows there have been opinions about the proposed requirement that each unit should at least have one openable window and it should not face a four-side enclosed light well. She said the authorities would consider easing such ventilation requirement, but the decision would depend on the results of consultation.
But what about those light wells? If they have access door so that the management company can go in the light ground and clear the rubbish? And what about the units that are at upper floors where they can at least have some fresh air from the rooftop? We are willing to listen to views from the public.
On another topic, the Court of Final Appeal ruled last month that same-sex married couples registered overseas should be entitled to the same rights to apply for public rental housing as normal families do. From the authorities' perspective, should same-sex married couples be included in the public housing system?
We know that the court have this ruling, and we are studying this ruling, and we are looking at the policy of the housing allocation, what would relate to these family definition, and we are working on that.
When asked how the court's ruling would affect the waiting time for public housing, Ho said they do not have too many related cases as for now. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Rosanna Law says there has been a noticeable increase in tourists in Hong Kong since the resumption of the multiple entry individual visit scheme for Shenzhen residents, with some 145,000 mainland visitors entering the city yesterday. Authorities hope various sectors will welcome the guests with hospitality. Timothy Lee reports.
The resumption of the multiple entry individual visit scheme, which came earlier this month, also saw the expansion of its benefits to 18 million Shenzhen residents. Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Rosanna Law noted that around 145,000 mainland tourists came to the city on Saturday, which is 28% higher than the daily average last month. When compared with just the 5 Saturdays in the previous month, the figure rose by just around 13%. This, as the tourism chief believes the resumption of the scheme could bring about new opportunities, particularly for the retail, entertainment and restaurant sectors, and urge businesses to take advantage of the measure. Meanwhile, many tourists from Shenzhen said they want to enjoy some of the more unique events in Hong Kong, now that they have more opportunities to come to the city. This woman wants to experience the horse racing events, adding that landmarks such as Cheung Chau and the Macleo's Trail have grown in popularity among mainland residents in recent times. While this woman says she enjoyed the cheerful atmosphere of the horse racing events, noting that she used to come to Hong Kong just for shopping. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The 2 giant pandas gifted by central authorities, Anan and Keke, met the public for the first time today. Keke wowed visitors with her introductory appearance at 10 this morning. Despite the fanfare, breakfast remained her priority. Her male counterpart, Anan, also focused on filling his stomach. This as Ocean Park provided the national treasures with their preferred snack of ice blocks. Scores of visitors already began queuing outside the park half an hour before its opening. Visitors must enter the Hong Kong Jockey Club Sichuan Treasures exhibit according to different time slots. More than 100 people could enter at the same time and could stay for a maximum of 10 minutes. The Hong Kong Streetathon took place this morning, involving some 20,000 runners. At around 5 a.m., runners took off from the event's starting point at the Island Eastern Corridor near the East Coast Park. Stretching over 42 kilometers, the Streetathon passed through Central, Wan Chai, Tseung Kwan O, and the Kai Tak Tunnel. Participants could also take part in the half Streetathon or the 10-kilometer event. Some runners in that event said they had to run for an extra 9 kilometers. Organizers said such incidents were a result of staff members providing wrong directions. A Hong Kong court recently overturned the government's approval of an environmental impact assessment report on building public housing on part of the Fanling Golf Course. In response to the court ruling, the Hong Kong Golf Club reiterated the Fanling facility is an important venue for hosting mega sports events that could help boost tourism and the economy. Samantha Lee tells us more.
Last Monday, the High Court handed down its ruling over a legal challenge against an environmental impact assessment report on a public housing plan on part of the Fanling Golf Course. The judicial review was filed by the Hong Kong Golf Club. Andy Kwok, captain of the club, said they were delighted to see that the court's ruling proved the values of the old course of the club. He said the club will continue to host sports events that will benefit society as a whole.
The Fanling Golf Course, as a golf club, as a golf course, is best to use to run as a golf course to attract mega events to Hong Kong. So through these mega sporting events, we're not only seeing golfers and golf lovers to come on to the course to watch these events. We're also seeing a lot of new non-golfers and the younger populations of the city and abroad to come to Hong Kong to enjoy the activities. This not only helped to popularize the sport, but it also helped to attract tourists.
Today, the Hong Kong Golf Club awarded honorary membership to Chinese golfer Janet Lin Xiyu, who won a bronze medal at the Olympics 2024. Lin said she hopes she can promote golf to more young people by collaborating with the club.
That's the reason I wanted to have my own tournament, maybe not just one tournament in the future. There's a lot more we can do to help out the kids that are already playing golf can to shine, to go out and to see the bigger stage in the world. The whole Canton area is doing a really good job by bringing golf into the school and have the kids try to play golf once or twice a week. Hopefully we get a chance to do the same thing to promote golf to all the kids here.
The Environmental Protection Department says they will review the ruling with its legal team to determine whether to appeal. Kwok said he prefers not to comment on that issue. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Hong Kong's soon-to-open Kai Tak Sports Park today conducted another stress test involving some 12,000 people. Fire and emergency evacuation drills were also carried out for the first time. Among the tests conducted previously, today's were the biggest in scale. Starting at around 3:30 p.m., participants including civil servants and the general public entered the Kai Tak Arena and youth sports ground. The police also deployed explosive detection dogs. The first fire evacuation drill started at around 5 p.m. Participants were divided into two batches, with one heading to two nearby MTR stations and the other walking to the bus and taxi stations. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.